So it's interesting, right? Like if you go look up the definition of propaganda, it is not like it necessarily has to be nefarious content. It just has to be content that you are intentionally showing people again and again and again until they get the sense that this is what everyone else believes. You must have a deep insight into the world of modern day propaganda in terms of like how it shapes the culture's understanding of the world. What do you like when you looked at the election? What did you see that other people didn't see?
I saw that, every time, I think because of my career, I take everything on the internet with 10 grains of salt. Like, I don't know if it's real or not. And during the election, I was like, man, are these memes about Biden created by someone that's paid off by Trump? Or are these Trump memes paid off by someone on Biden's team? Like, you never know. I feel like just on the internet, I'm just scared of everything. To me just seems fake. Like, I just don't know if anything is real, and that goes from my sister seeing some models on Instagram that look like they're super sexy and have big tits and they're chilling in Bali, but really everything's photoshopped and there's just a green screen behind them, but no one else knows, all the way into, memes that are getting shared about the election. So yeah, to me, man, just the internet is an awesome, beautiful place, but it's also created this weird thing where people just take everything at face value. And I think we saw a lot of that during these elections where a lot of people would just be like, yeah, I saw that on Facebook. And it's like, man, do you understand that there's thousands of companies on Facebook that just create random shit just to get clicks? And it doesn't have to be it could be total bullshit, and they can write a nice tagline, headline, throw it out there. And it, oddly enough, I was talking to, we had BBC here yesterday and we were talking about this, and it was like, it's almost oddly enough like the older generation that really falls for it a lot easier, because they're used to taking media at face value. Like back in their day, there's one channel, everyone gets the same news, and it's, facts are facts. And especially if there's like a decent production value behind it, it's just, they eat it right up. So, I think, and that's kind of, going to show like at this, the Capitol riots, I don't think you saw many younger kids there. I think you saw a lot of older people there. And it just, I'm not generalizing totally, but it does feel like older people are more, they're easier, I guess, to trick. And they're
that is a very interesting observation, right? Because most of the people, when they're looking around at the world, they're saying, oh, the reason we're going to hell in a handbasket is because all these young people are, they need their safe spaces and they're getting so upset about the most minor things. But I've never heard anybody say, well, we've got a problem, and that's that the old people are so gullible because they'll believe anything you put on the radar screen in front of them.
Yeah, I have this one meme that I love. It's like a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and I'm like, some stupid quote that's obviously not by Abraham Lincoln. And it's like, that's the perfect example. Like, as long as there's decent editing and you have a picture or a video and some text over a picture and a video, boomers take it for facts and face value. They don't even fact check it. They don't go and Google it, nothing. And yeah, I think in terms of that, like, Facebook is dangerous, because I think when you're younger and you grow up with the internet, you kind of start to learn, to keep an eye on certain stuff and maybe fact check it, or you have a better feeling for it because you're so around it. But yeah, I think for the older generation, it's hard, and it makes sense. Like, they're not used to this type of media. So.
Well, so, one of the books that I read, so I used to work for Monsanto, and I was the director of millennial engagement. So my job was to represent, one of the most hated companies in the world, and saying, like, how do you get people to stop what they already believe just to give you enough time to be able to say anything that would alter their opinion about things. And so this gave me a very, like, hypothetical understanding of the world, as well as like a very pragmatic, practical standing up in front of people that have been told you represent evil. And one of the experiences that I had was generating outrage, right? Like, you can find people that will agree with you. You can point somebody out and you can generate that energy. And once I actually felt how you could do that, man, it felt like a villain's superpower that's incredibly dangerous, right? Because yes, you can do that, and yes, you can vanquish your enemies for a little while, but then you've put this darkness into the world that eventually comes for you. The mob always comes for you. Do you feel that way as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because you have this power and people are, I guess, are greedy, just selfish, and that's just how it is. So yeah, I think you use this power and you kind of don't fully think through what's going to happen at the end of it, and you just want the immediate quick results. So yeah, I mean, like, I think that in 5 years, there's going to be a lot of people that were involved in this previous election, and with memes and influencing and swaying stuff, it's going to catch up to people, and there's going to be a price to pay. But it's also, I think right now people are more okay with doing it because it's so new that there's really not rules set for it yet. There's no like crazy repercussions for it yet. Like no one's really been made an example out of this stuff. So
oh, I definitely think people have been made an example. I mean, so actually, the thing that really shocked me was I read Ryan Holiday's book, Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Oh, I love that book. I read that in Mexico a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's what I think of with you and to some extent my background. Like, you read that book and like you get to the last couple of pages and you're like, this thing's a little bit radioactive because this is foretelling the future that happens if I continue to use the evil dark power. And I remember being in the airport when I was finishing reading this book being like, should I throw this away because I don't want people to know the superpower, or should I give it to people? Like, I don't know what to do with this book.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all part of the cog though, right? Like in that book, the journalists, they just want a story because they just want clicks. So then if you're Ryan Holiday, you can feed them some story that pushes your narrative. And it's like a feeding machine monster that just needs to kept getting fed. So yeah, that book was so interesting, man. I read that too, and I was like, wow. It kind of went more into my belief of, I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy. I don't listen or read conspiracy theories, but I don't know. It just made me even more be like, man, is everything a lie? Like the stuff that you read, is it that, or is it someone behind the door that needed that article to go out for some specific reason? So it's kind of scary, but you don't know what's going to happen with it. Like, where is this going to end up in 10 years? Like,
I agree 100%. Like, so the experience for me, just going to Monsanto. So when I interviewed to work at Monsanto, like, I imagine if you know anything at all about Monsanto, you're like, man, that place is North Korea. Why the fuck would you go work there? But the only reason I took the job interview is because I was like, I'm going to be able to write a sweet blog about going and visiting North Korea. This is going to be awesome. And then I got in there and I did this interview. And when I got done, I realized, wait a second, if you get this job, if they give it to you, then you get to run around and find out if they're as evil as everybody says that they are. You can go write the greatest tell-all book of all time. But if you're wrong, well, then that's actually the greatest like mind loop you've ever gone through in your life, because you went from thinking these people are pure evil and they're not, from what I see. So why is it before I came in here that I deeply believed with everything that I had that they were? And that's when you start saying, like, what other things do I know with 100% certainty, like I did with this, about the rest of the world? And I don't think my view has ever come back from that, about like how wrong I was before I walked in for that job interview.
So you would say that your mindset changed, obviously, after you got that job. You don't think that it's like
180 degrees. I mean, like, I realized really how vapidly thin my understanding was. I was like, my understanding of Monsanto was they sue farm. I mean, I went in and did the interview, and like, it was 7 hours of interview. So the whole time the best job interview you will ever do is a job you don't want, because you say whatever you want, right? So I'm sitting there being like, so why are you suing farmers to death? Oh, why are you spreading chemicals that are killing everyone? But I had never actually been in a position to hear the other perspective. I had watched documentaries where they kind of showed the other perspective.
But they don't want to. They still have an agenda, obviously.
Yeah, and so that was when you start realizing, like, wait a second, are all of these documentaries bullshit? And by the way, they all are. Every single one of them, all of them are. People tell me they watch documentaries instead of reading books, and I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, dude, it's really like that now. And people just, they'll read something, they see it on Facebook. Oh man, that must be true. And then you don't even try to see the other side. I think that's the most dangerous mentality that we as a species could have right now, is that you're closed-minded and you're not even bothering to take a look behind the curtains and see, well, maybe there's something that I'm missing. Like, question yourself. I think that's so important to constantly be asking, why do I fully believe this? Why did, like, constantly questioning stuff. And I don't feel like enough people do that. They, especially these people on Facebook, you just see it, you see a headline, I know people that will come up to me, say that they saw something, or I'll see them share something on Facebook. I'll read the actual article and be like, hey, did you know that article was about that? No, what do you mean? I find out that they didn't even read the fucking article. They just shared it on Facebook. And I think that's dangerous. Like, I think we should, like your experience, like we should try to look at the other side, and then we can form our whole opinion. But it's interesting thinking, like, with this thing, like, all right, maybe they're Monsanto's competitors or something started this smear campaign, or I don't know.
100%, man. People don't even. I'll blow your mind. So when Roundup came out, so Roundup is actually a really innocuous chemical. People in the state of California believe it causes cancer, but if we were to actually go look at the chemical structure, and I have sat down and had people draw it out and show how it works when water hits it and how it breaks apart, just assume for 1 second that I'm correct. Roundup is relatively safe. When they started doing that, now, all of a sudden, the way that you tackle weeds out in your field radically changes. So instead of going out and taking a steel spike that you have to slam into the ground and drag all the way across your field with a giant tractor that requires diesel and huge engines and that steel that has to be replaced, now you've put on a chemical that you can drive over the field and just the weeds just die. Well, who does this hurt? Well, it hurts everybody making steel plows, everybody making giant engines, and it doesn't just like kind of hurt their bottom line. It radically changes the entire way that the agricultural system in the Western world works. So there is now billions of dollars at stake. And so they start playing the game where they say, well, it's not us, but we did happen to fund a group of people that really hate your way of doing things. And so you're playing this mimetic warfare. And I think that's why I'm so interested in what you do, because I got to see mimetic warfare from after the cities have been bombed, right? Like after you've had a company be completely annihilated by the meme war and try and like come back. It was an interesting place to be in Dresden after the firebombing or something.
You know what's interesting to me too is that, like, I think this has been going on, this warfare, for so goddamn long. We've always been doing it. It's just now what happens on the internet. Like, as soon as you started talking about that story with the weeds, I started thinking about how weed became illegal. I don't know the exact details of it, but I know that it's the tree farmer guys hated that hemp was going to be replacing trees. So they lobby and petition and basically just get rid of the whole weed plant, even though it was hemp that they were worried about. So it's like, even before the internet, this type of stuff was always going on. I feel like now the internet just made it easier to spread those messages, and it made the warfare even more intense. But really, as a society, we've been doing shit like this since the beginning,
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.